Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to another stream. Took a day off. Recorded the last parts of the white red, aka Boros video, so I can finally start editing. We'll see if my voice is like too raspy, too sick, and I need to re-record something. I actually haven't checked, but let's focus on the here and now. Now, I didn't want to get too far ahead on the colors in these streams. For the streams, even though I was a little sick, I continued streaming. You could hear it. I apologize profusely. I'm feeling a lot better now. But for the videos, I wanted to stay or sound healthy, because to me the videos, they stay up longer and I want to be proud of them. For these streams, I have different priorities. Now, why am I saying this? I didn't plan on doing this now, but there is an obvious oversight with the way that I do these videos, because I've said this in the beginning, I ignore partners and all partner-like mechanics completely. Because, and the video description always contains this line of text, I believe they deserve their own video. And they are difficult to talk about, because potentially there's like a million different combinations. I think just taking the choose a background commanders, there's probably around 60. And let's say there is 40 backgrounds, then suddenly you have, I think it's actually 60 times 40 combinations. Not all of them make sense, of course, but if you were to cover them all, well, that's what you would have to do. For this stream, I thought it could be an interesting small little intermezzo to talk about this. To talk about these combinations of partners, and for today, just the backgrounds and the choose a background commanders that I deem to be the best, and some basics around the mechanic also. Let's first talk about some absolute basics when it comes to the partner mechanics in general, and choose a background in particular. I think this is the official standing here. Choose a background is a variant of the partner mechanic. The partner mechanic being you choose one commander, it says partner or partner with or friends forever or choose a background, and then you take a second commander, or at least legendary permanent, that also contains the same line. This means that you have a lot of freedom, at least with the open-ended commanders. So let's open up a Scryfall search here. I don't know why it always wants to divert me to Lorwyn, but let's say we are looking at anything that contains the word, the phrase partner. And then you can see 134 cards contain the word partner. Not all of these are super open-ended. There's the partner mechanics that just say, well, choose a different partner. For example, well, those three here, you could all play them together. And that means you could go out of your way to create a 4 or 5 color deck. Let's say you combine this white-red commander with a blue-green commander, or a 3-color Friends Forever mechanic with another Friends Forever guy. Let's actually be more specific, and let's look for Friends Forever. Yeah, so we have white, black, red, and you could combine it with blue and whites, and then suddenly you have a 4-color deck. It's pretty sick. It gives the community a lot of freedom to get super creative. For me, it's a nightmare to talk about because then I will say, yeah, let's talk about Allura, marry a thief with Hardy Outlander, and then someone else is going to be like, yeah, but what about Allura with one of the million other enchantments that you could choose as your background? That will not stop me from attempting to talk about this topic, though. Um, and let's first talk about choose a background versus partner. Now, partner, you choose 2 legendary creatures. With choose a background, you choose a legendary enchantment. And that has some inherent differences. First of all, enchantments are much harder to remove than creatures. I think that much we can agree on. It is potentially, aside from lands, the hardest permanent type to get rid of. Artifact hate, I think a lot of people include nowadays, and it's just stapled onto so many red cards in particular. Whereas enchantment removal, like these enchantment players, and let me tell you, as someone who plays like a black or white stack, enchantments stay relatively untouched for a long part of the game. The other difference, of course, is you only have one creature that can deal commander damage, whereas the background doesn't really, like, you can't use it as a 21 damage beater. So that's also a slight difference. Apart from that, though, we can kind of treat this as if it was a partner. One more difference that I want to point out is, I think this potentially leans... Wait, no. This style of partner mechanic suits one style of playing particularly well, and that is Enchantress. The fact that you have a enchantment in your command zone means you will always have that one enchantment to trigger your, whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card type cards. And that is something that I potentially would keep an eye out for. Of course, you shouldn't restrict yourself too much. Let's start with Abdel Adrian Gorian's Ward, which is the first choose a background commander on our list. And it is one that I think only has one really good background that you should play him with, and that is Candlekeep Sage. Let's look at what Abdel Adrian does first. He's a 5-mana human warrior. Now you would expect some tribal shenanigans when you see human and warrior, but no. When it enters, you exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until this guy leaves the battlefield. Then you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way. Candlekeep Sage is a 3-mana background that you can play alongside Abdel. It reads, commander creatures you own have the ability, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. These two guys work so well in tandem because both of them have when he enters, when it enters, when he leaves, when it leaves, right? Candlekeep just improves what your commander is already doing. So they just go hand in hand and demand of you to play the same cards. The same cards being something like Flicker Wisp. Flicker Wisp, one of those innocuous creatures, 3-mana, 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, you exile another target permanent and return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is, I think it's pretty obvious why this is so good. You play Candlekeep on 3, you play Abdel on 5, you just get rid of some stuff. And then the next turn, you Flicker Wisp Abdel, you draw a card because Abdel leaves the battlefield. You get all of these 1/1 white soldiers and return all of your permanents into the battlefield. And then Abdel comes back end of turn. He gets rid of a Flicker Wisp and all of the stuff that you have on your field. You draw a card of the Candlekeep Sage, and I think it's just super obvious why this is so good. the basic examples for cards that you should be playing are the Wellsprings, the Wellspring type cards. Take your Wellspring, for example. 2-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. Now, you're not going to be sacrificing this a whole lot, but instead, of course, you're going to flicker it with Abdel a bunch. Why this is also nice is if we look at our curve, our 3-drop slot and our 5-drop slot is already filled by our commander. That means I personally would steer away from playing too many cards on that mana cost. Now, 3 is a bit more forgiving, but 5 really should belong to Abdel. That means maybe instead of playing a card like Flicker Wisp, something like Felia would be better because it's a 2-drop that you can drop on 2. Or Felidar, is it the Guardian? Felidar Guardian, which is a 4-mana card. And you can quite naturally see how a curve would look, potentially, with an Abdel Candlekeep Sage deck. It would be. Turn 1, like Tapland, maybe. Turn 2, Ichor Wellspring. Turn 3, Candlekeep Sage. Turn 4, Felidar Guardian. Flicker your Ichor Wellspring, draw another card. Turn 5, Abdel. Get rid of Felidar Guardian and Ichor Wellspring, and potentially even the Candlekeep Sage. And then you can do like kind of whatever. Let's say the turn after you ephemerate your Abdel, you return Ichor Wellspring, Flicker Wisp, Candlekeep Sage, which potentially you should flicker or should not flicker. That really depends on the situation. And yeah, like you can easily see how this gets very complicated also to track. I've seen the deck in action live, and it's a bit of a headache for everyone else because you're doing a bunch of stuff and creating a million soldiers. And make sure, that is my plea to people who are building a flicker deck around Abdel and Candlekeep Sage, make sure to include win conditions. So stuff like, oh god, the Moonshaker Cavalry. Is that not how you write Moonshaker? Oh, wait. Name. Make sure to include stuff like this. This is an extreme example. 8 mana, 6/6 flying. When it enters, creatures you control gain flying and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. I think either you go this route and use all of the soldier tokens that Abdel creates to then have a good beatdown plan. Or, remember, when Abdel enters, you exile any number of non-land permanents, and when he leaves, you return them immediately. We have a similar wording on Felidar Guardian. So, let's say you have a Felidar Guardian, an Abdel, and a... what's his face? An angel. God, it's actually one of my favorite angels, so it's a bit embarrassing that I don't know offhand. It's an angel that exiles and returns immediately again. So, card type angel, exile, return. I'm thinking, of course, of Restoration Angel. Wait. These types of effects go infinite with each other. So what's super duper nice here is Felidar Guardian and Restoration Angel and Abdel, they all follow your main game plan. Your Felidar Guardian can flicker your Abdel, your Restoration Angel can flicker your Abdel can flicker Felidar Guardian and Restoration Angel. They all work in tandem, but also Felidar Guardian and Restoration Angel just go infinite with each other. Resto flickers Felidar, flickers Resto, flickers Felidar, flickers Resto. And then it's easy to see how you really only need one payoff for whenever creature enters. It could be a Soul Warden. Right? It could be a Soul Warden and then et voila. these two cards that are just good in your deck suddenly turn into an infinite combo. And I know people don't like infinite combos all that much, but as someone who has a mono blue dirtily deck that just counters everything, gets a lot of card advantage, and wins the game eventually, the number one feedback that I get is, well, I mean, the game was over for a while, but we played on for a couple of extra rounds, and that was annoying. So, potentially, your playgroup appreciates if you just put in an infinite combo and everybody can just agree that they should move on to the next game. This one, I believe, pretty straightforward. I think the flicker mechanic lends itself to some degeneracy and to some headaches while playing. So it's a lot, you'll have to go through a lot of motions, track a lot of triggers, but if that's your style of playing, then, well, have fun. Now, next on the list, Allura Merry Thief. Allura is a 3-mana 3/2 halfling rogue. Whenever you attack, up to one target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. And of course, she has choose a background. She's a 3/2. I would pair Allura Merry Thief with Hardy Outlander. It's a 2-mana background that reads, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. The reason why I paired these two together is, for one, the curve works out nicely. You have a 2-mana enchantment, you have a 3-mana planeswalker. Things can get awkward if you have a 3-mana commander, sorry, not planeswalker, if you have a 3-mana commander and a 3-mana background. That, in my opinion, is a little awkward. Here, nice 2 and 3. Second of all, they both care about attacking. Now, that is a very superficial take on what they do, but it's a good indicator that they fit well together. Next, Allura specifically reads when you attack, not when it attacks. Up to one target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Return this creature to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. The line, return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step, makes me believe that this is not meant to be a Voltron deck. Unblockable, of course, is very nice on pretty much any creature ever, but the fact that you need to return it to your hand means it should probably be something that has an ETB. Hardy Outlander is one of the few backgrounds that make it so your commander can do something for another creature, aka give it +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. There's a few different ways this could play out. Of course, Hardy Outlander makes it so you need to attack with Allura Merry Thief. This leads to some issues because she's only a 3/2. But Hardy Outlander is the type of card that makes it so you can suit up Allura and still attack because you want to buff her power quite a bit anyways. This means, in my opinion, you should be pairing Allura and Hardy Outlander with things that have good attack triggers, good on-hit triggers, and potentially good ETBs. So, let's look for enters and deals damage. Because remember, A, we get to bounce, and B, minus is UB, and B, it's pretty likely that we will get in another hit because their creature will be unblockable. For example, Aerial Extortionist. Whenever Aerial Extortionist enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, exile up to one target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it. Whenever another player casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. Now, this guy is pretty good already. So we have our 2 cost background, or 3-drop commander, and then on 5, maybe we drop an Aerial Extortionist. 5 mana, it enters, it exiles one target non-land permanent. That could be a problematic permanent by an opponent. It could be one of our own permanents that we want to trigger a ETB again. Then, turn after, we attack with our commander and we attack with Aerial Extortionist. We make Aerial Extortionist unblockable. It makes sure we trigger this line of text whenever this deals combat damage to a player. Exile another non-land permanent. And then we return Aerial Extortionist to our hand, which is not that big of a deal because, right, they don't get the cards back. The cards remain in exile. But instead, we get to play him again, potentially, if we have the 5-mana open, exile a third thing, and yeah, that is like a pretty clean 3-4-2, I guess. And should they want to play those cards, it becomes much better than that. Let's see if there is more stuff like this. Oh, we should also say color identity is... Oh, yeah, okay, of course, Aerial Extortionist doesn't work. But we are looking for cards like that. Blue, green. Let's see. Whenever this enters, nothing quite like this. Stuff like this is interesting. Stuff like Dowsing Dagger is interesting. If you don't know, it's a 2-mana equipment. When it enters, target opponent creates 2 0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. The equipped creature gets +2/+1. It equips for 2. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may transform Dowsing Dagger. It transforms into a Lotus Land, which means it transforms into a land that taps for 3 mana of any one color. Very, very strong. We could... Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, this is a partner commander. Okay, whenever this guy deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a death touch counter from it. When you do, exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. It enters with a death touch counter on it. This is interesting because, okay, let's say you go to attack with your commander. You've turned something unblockable already. That thing, obviously, will not get blocked, and you ninjutsu kappa tech Rekka in. It deals damage, you can immediately destroy something. This means that the creature that you would have had to return anyways at end of turn, you got to swap out with a kappa tech Rekka, which you ensured was going to come in for ninjutsu because your creature was unblockable. Easy. The line of text like leaves battlefield, and yeah, mostly that also made me think of the frogs from Bloom Burrow. For example, Long River Lurker is a 3-mana ward 1. Other frogs you control have ward 1. And when it enters, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Could be your commander. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, you may exile it. If you do, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So yeah, it could make your commander unblockable, and then you get in with 2 unblockable creatures, return 1 to your hand and 1 to the battlefield. It could just be a creature that you want to turn unblockable because it has a good on-hit ability. There's quite a few tricks that you can go for here. Let's see. I'm a bit surprised that there is not more good ETB and on-hit cards, to be honest. Ooh, that's a sick card. 5 mana. When this creature enters, target creature gains flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards until end of turn. It's pretty sick because you potentially can trigger this again and again by returning it to your hand. It's quite nice. So maybe we focus more on the yep, deals damage player, because I know blue has quite a few good ones here. Let's focus on the becoming unblockable for a second. And yeah, I mean, the ancient dragons are very nice. Whenever they deal combat damage to a player, you roll a d20 and then do something depending on the result. That's nice. Ooh, the tea I made. Wow, the tea I made. I let it sit for a little too long. Arm with Ether. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent. You may return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. This is very good with a go wide strategy. Much less so with an effect like our little blue commander friend here, because she can only give one creature unblockable. So that's quite different. I like Blade Griff Prototype. It is an underplayed card in my opinion. 5 mana, 3/2 flying. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you destroy target non-land permanent of that player's choice that one of your opponents control. It's one of those cards that sometimes you don't even need to make unblockable because you can just make a deal. Hey, this enchantment, this stacks piece is super annoying. How about I just hit you for 3 and you get to destroy it? Remember, they can never target you, so that is quite cool. I'm looking for really, really good effects here. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Right, whenever the Selkie, for example, deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. We do need to remember, though, that we need to return the cards to our hand at end of at the end of the turn. So what I want to do instead is let's look at the frogs from. So we're gonna say card type frog, and we are gonna say set Bloomburrow specifically because they care the most about bouncing. There has been quite a few frogs over the years, but the Bloomburrow frogs are quite interesting. And it also justifies the green background that we choose. So, for example, Dourport Mage is a 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, you draw a card. For 2 mana, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. Dreamdew Entrancer. Whenever this enters, tap up to one target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. If you control that creature, you draw 2 cards. Stuff like this is pretty good. There is an argument to be made that you should just be playing Clement, but Clement does something very different. He goes harder on the leaving and entering again, but he's much, much, much less aggressive. I want to explore one more thing here. We are, as we add a couple of stuff to the tag here, let's add them all to AL. We are bouncing creatures a bunch to our hand. I'm wondering if there is cards that take inherent advantage off of you having creatures in hand a lot. I'm thinking potentially. So what I'm thinking is, okay, return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. If we were in red, we could take advantage of sneak attack type cards. And that could be quite interesting. So potentially Allura shouldn't be paired. So we're going to explore that next, actually. Let's finish talking about green, and then we will move on to Allura plus a red enchantment. It could pretty much be any enchantment, but yeah. This version, I was thinking of two enchantments. Two enchantments that make it so you can cast 3 without. Let's see if we find it like that already, and it is an enchantment. I'm thinking of enchantments that let you play cheap creatures for free. Allurin, 4-mana enchantment. Any player may play a creature card with total casting cost 3 or less whenever he or she could play an instant, and without paying its casting cost. This is a supremely powerful effect, and there is another version that requires you to pay energy. Cast without, and let's say energy, I guess. Energy. I'm not sure if he finds energy, or I don't know how the symbol is called, or like how I would type in the symbol for energy. But we can work around by saying enchantment, and mana value is 4. At least I believe it's 4. It might be 3 actually, because it's a Modern Horizons card. Okay, maybe not. Okay, I will need to do some quick checkup, but I know that Lauren has a Modern Horizons example of that. So the idea is you get in with your Cold-Eyed Selkie, you draw a couple of cards, like your Hardy Outlander and your Selkie, you buff the Selkie, you draw a bunch of cards, then you have to return the Selkie to your hand, but you're playing Allurin, so at instant speed and without paying the mana cost, you are playing Selkie again, ready to attack during the next combat. I want to change tags here and add another tag, ALP, for Popular Entertainer. I want to talk about a different variant that I just realized is possible. And that's the danger. Really, I think that is the danger for me as a content creator with partner mechanics. Is like on the go, you realize, oh my god, there's something I completely missed. I'm thinking, and let's quickly check if that is possible, that this commander works super well with Snack Attack. No. Sneak Attack is, of course, the card that I'm looking for. Sneak Attack, of course, most people will know it, a 4-mana enchantment. For 1 red, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice the creature at the beginning of the next end step. Now, here we have 2 competing triggers. For 1, we need to sacrifice the creature, and we also need to return it to our hand. And we kind of get to choose. So let's read Sneak Attack and the rules text. Sacrifice the creature only if you still control it. If that creature has left the battlefield, even if it came back, you do not sacrifice it. This means, let's say you are sneaking in a... What are people sneaking in? They're sneaking in Darksteel... No, Blightsteel Colossus. Sorry, not the Darksteel Colossus. Blight, Steel, Colossus. Classic sneak attack target. I actually want a magic version. Blightsteel Colossus, 12 mana, 11/11, trample, infect. It has indestructible. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into your library instead. Turn 3, you play Alora. So let's say turn 2, you play a Signet. Let's really put emphasis on the turn cycle here. Arcane Signet. So it could look like this. Turn 2, you play an Arcane Signet. Turn 3, you play a Sneak Attack. Turn 4, you play an Alora. And I want a magic version. So Arcane Signet into Sneak Attack. Next turn, you play Alora. You can even miss your land drop. You Sneak Attack in a Blightsteel Colossus, which is already immensely powerful on turn 4. But not only do you attack for Trample Infect, which means Infect means, of course, any player taking the hit is dead. Whenever you attack, up to one target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Aha! Our Blightsteel Colossus can't be blocked. And then, instead of sacrificing it to Sneak Attack and shuffling it into your library, you return it to your hand, and you are ready to do it again next turn. This commander is honestly quite obscene with Sneak Attack. And here, of course, we can still play the Ancient Silver Dragon, right? When this deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. Draw cards equal to the result. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Now, Popular Entertainer here, I chose for the sole reason that it opens up all of the Sneak Attack cards. Like, what else is there? We have Meek Attack, but that's not quite as good. We have Through the Breach. We have a couple of these nowadays, right? But yeah, that is the only reason I chose Popular Entertainer. But what does Popular Entertainer actually do? It is a 2-mana card. Commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, go target creatures that player controls. It plays a bit of defense while you're all out on that Sneak Attack plan or Through the Breach plan that you are following. But really, it almost is like in EDH, where your commander doesn't matter all that much. Like, the red here is not because it's a good card. It's solely because it opens up a color that has a desirable effect. All right. I think I'm done talking about Alora, but it was nice that we kind of figured out a second way to build around her, and that is probably the way you should approach this. The commander should come first, and then the background should be decided by more what is desirable to your commander than what the background actually does. Let's move on. Next we have... Whoops, sorry, that's the wrong one. Secondary commander. Amber Gristle Omal, a 4-mana 3/3 dwarf cleric. It has haste, and whenever it attacks, you may discard your hand. If you do, you draw a card for each player being attacked. Here, we are hyper aggressive. We are trying to do the impossible. In Commander, very oh my god, all of these special artworks are driving me crazy. In Commander, it is kind of the going opinion that aggro is dead, everybody's playing mid-range value, and the person who accrues the most value wins. And in some cases, and I've had that experience in my LGS, if you do go aggressive, people actually get mad at you because how could you end the game on turn 6 when all I did was, like, I mean, my opponent literally played one Ram spell and their commander once in 6 turns. And yeah. This deck is doing the Lord's work and trying to punish all of these decks that just dirt all around by getting super duper aggressive. First of all, it has haste. Whenever it attacks, you may discard your hand. Okay, discard hand makes me think of a very special mechanic, and that is, of course, white, red. Let's see what madness cards come up. We have some good cards in here, like Anya's Ravager. Whenever this guy attacks, you discard your hand, and then you draw 3 cards. This makes it so your commander doesn't always have to get in, but it is a bit of more of the same with different cards, though. Big Game Hunter destroys target creature with power 4 or greater. It can't be regenerated. I think in a format like Commander, this is reasonable. I'm not sure if I've seen a game in the past months where there wasn't a good target for something like Big Game Hunter. Like, you can kind of pick and choose here. You could even discard like a Blazing Root Walla, which you can cast for 0. All of that is certainly possible. So that is one line like of text that you can make use of. And then if you do, like, you may discard your hand, you don't have to, by the way. If you do, draw a card for each player being attacked. Let's first think about card draw. Is there good payoffs for whenever you draw a card? Whenever ever draw a card. I mean, usually red is the color that punishes people for drawing cards. All of these draw cards if something happens. That's something that happens quite often, and I wonder how I can prevent that. Probably by putting like the parentheses around all of these. Like whenever you draw 1 or more cards. Whenever you draw, let's see if this works. Whenever you draw a card, kind of put parentheses around all of this. Probably not, no. Do we know good payoffs? Personally, nothing comes to mind in red. There should be something that pings. I know there's payoffs for playing a bunch of spells, but I'm not sure if there's something that pays you off for drawing a bunch of cards. Right, whenever you draw your second card each turn. Ironcrag Pyromancer deals 3 damage. Okay, so maybe let's stick to that line of text then. Draw second card. Because there's a couple of cards that I remember exist. For example, the guy that makes breaths. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, you may pay 1 black. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. It's an avatar card, but if you're into that, like, that's an easy one to do. And oof, that's how do you say? Something pickings. Limited pickings? No, that's not it. But my basic idea would be first include, of course, madness cards. Shit. Then include cards that care about you drawing cards. And then if you do draw a card for each player being attacked, that just makes me think of like the myriad mechanic. And the myriad mechanics exists even outside of just CI is black and red. The myriad mechanics exists in multiple forms, not just as a keyword. For example, Elturel Survivors 4 mana Trample Myriad. As long as it is attacking, it gets +X+0, where X is the number of lands defending player controls. And Myriad, of course, means you attack player A and you get a copy attacking players B and C. Or Fire Furbolg Flutist 6 mana 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature you don't control. Untap it, it gains haste and myriad. Really like this effect. It could end a game potentially because you get to copy a bunch of ETBs also. Goldlust Shryad. And even if we're thinking... I'm trying to remember the card that I saw. I just played against the Zergo deck precon from Tarkir. And there was a card that read, whenever you attack a player, create for each player you're not attacking. Create token Player. A couple should come up, right? CI, we will keep black red just to make sure. Let's see. For each creature card in your graveyard, no, that's not it. That's not the effect that I'm looking for. If you have tips for good cards, of course, always welcome in chat. Slim pickings, thank you. Very nice. Also, welcome back. Glad to have you back. What I'm looking for is an effect that reads like, whenever you attack player A, create a copy that is, or create tokens that are attacking another player. So whenever you attack a player, choose target non-token creature that's attacking that player, create a token that's a copy of the creature. Token enters tapped and attacking the same player. So that's not what we want. We want to be attacking different players. Should be a very red effect, in my opinion. Let's see if something comes up. Create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. Of course, that type of effect works because, well, you will have enough creatures to attack every single one. Sword of Selves, I assume that gives Myriad. We already included a couple of Myriad cards. We don't need to go overboard. We just want to showcase, of course. If only I remembered. Nice. I love Knuckles. Destroy creatures. If this was kicked. Okay, we might not find it. I would have hoped that there's a couple of cards that that would have this desired effect. I know a lot of white cards that do that, but maybe it is a primarily white effect. That's unfortunate. Let's talk about the secondary commander in quotation marks that I chose here. It's Haunted One. 3 mana. And again, here I'm trying to not have the same mana value in my background and my commander. The Haunted One, 3 mana, background. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, aka if it attacks, it and other creatures you control that share a creature type with it, each get +2/+0 and gain Undying until end of turn. Now, this is mostly meant, again, to open up a color combination. Your commander is hyper aggressive, so that really leaves 2 colors, and that is black and that is white. Rakdos and Boros are the most well-suited colors to punch someone in the face repeatedly until they die. Haunted One is very specific. Molten Echoes. It's an artifact, though. I'm not sure I understand the point. Molten Echoes. Let's see. Echoes. So not how you write echoes? Choose a creature type. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield, under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Okay, that's pretty sick. You get like 1 extra copy. Although, of course, best case scenario, you want to draw 2 cards. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. And here, let's add all of these. Unfortunately, though, Amber has 2 very niche creature types in Dwarf and Cleric. Now, Cleric, of course, is pretty prominent in black, but mostly white. But we can take a look. If we aren't choosing the background that we chose, we can instead maybe look at some others. Whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. That would be even more aggressive. Would maybe fit better. Or commander creatures you own get +3/+3, flying, death touch, and ward, pay 3 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Although I do think like this could also fit. Actually, let's add them as like secondary commanders or secondary backgrounds. I hope AM is the right one. What I want them to do mostly is open up. Did I add them to the right one? I think so. I want them to open up black as a color. And if they do something nice, that is appreciated, but like not a necessity. Let's move on to the main deck and let's add one and move on to the main deck. Again, what you need to be very careful about with these backgrounds is they only do something when your commander is in play. So you want to prioritize your commander by quite a bit. Molten Echoes, it's in my Pirates deck. If you manage many tokens that are the same, then Shared Animosity is fun too. Yeah, Shared Animosity also is like an insane card that should probably see more play because it just kills people out of nowhere. So, you can choose Haunted One if you manage to find a couple of good clerics that are aggressive. You can choose Cultist of the Absolute if you go a bit of a token route that has a bunch of things to sacrifice, or you can go Agent of Iron Throne if you want to go a bit more into the sacrifice direction. Let's look at some black-red clerics. I'm sure they will, like, cleric. I'm sure they will be quite aggressively slanted. So whenever this guy attacks, if a non-permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, defending player loses half their life rounded up. Hyper aggressive card. Let's see. At the beginning of combat, target vampire gets +2/+0. Okay, that's not the best one, but something like stir another good example. Whenever it enters, someone loses a life. When this creature enters or attacks, if you have no cards in hand, this deals 2 damage to any target. It has madness. It's like a nice bridge. And that is stuff that you can fill out your deck with if you want to choose the Haunted One as a background. I'm not sure we should go much deeper into that direction. I do think there's like slight variations depending on which background you choose, but I don't think they will make or break your deck. Your deck will still be an Amber Gristle O'Maul deck, no matter what your background is. We could try and like take a look at a white-red deck, what that would look like. Do we have a good idea? Let's check the white backgrounds that I selected. Okay, I literally didn't think a single one of the white backgrounds was worth it. Let's double check. Let's see if I'm right. Background and a white. I think the folk hero I've seen sometimes. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step exile up to 1 target type creature you control. Return it. That's pretty meh. Flaming Fist. Whenever this creature attacks, it gains double strike until end of turn. That's okay. Commander creatures you control have whenever you cast a spell that shares a creature type with this creature. So that would kind of focus on the creature type synergy. Here we have Inspiring Leader. Creature tokens you control get +2/+2. That's interesting. This one is a bit complex. Commander creatures you control have when this creature enters and at the beginning of your upkeep. Each player may put 2/1/1 counters on a creature they control. For each opponent who does, you gain protection from that player until your next turn. And Veteran Soldier. Commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. I think we can talk about all 3 of these together with our commander. So, let's go back. Let's add all of them to the tag. I really don't like that it always collapses. Oh, they're probably in the main deck already, right? Yeah. So, we talked about AM here, AMP, and then let's talk about AMW. Wait, let's give her another tag for the white ones. Hashtag AMW. So we can talk about all of the white variants, because I also gave her the popular entertainer as a respective card that you could be playing, but that would be a mono red variant. So we talked about black red. As I said, you can choose the haunted one. You can choose the where are the other backgrounds? Am I blind? The Agent of the Throne or the Cultist Absolute. All of these are perfectly fine. Next, let's talk about mono red. Mono red still will have the same types of cards to a certain degree. Now, of course, every mono red payoff we had goes in here. But if we make the concession of giving up black as a color, we really need to take a look at what the background does, right? There's two approaches to this. You play your background to get access to a color and the effects that a color comes with, or your background is actually something super duper powerful. Popular Entertainer is a 2-mana background. Commander creatures you own have, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, goad target creature that player controls. In a best case scenario, you are goading one creature of every opponent every single turn. Because your commander, of course, wants you to attack everyone at the same time anyways. I think this effect is powerful enough to potentially give up black as a color, especially since you're not missing out on much. All of the good myriad cards in here, the draw payoffs, are already super aggressive. And if we think of cards, let's say, can't block. I think, wait, actually, I think I know a card off the top of my head. Mayhem. Actual just Mayhem. Never mind, I don't know the card. So let's look for can't block on an enchantment. Enchantment. And me and mistyping. Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. The color identity is literally just red. Bedlam. Creatures can't block. Effects like these are inherent to red, and of course they work wonders with the combination of commander plus background that you have here. And from there on out, is there much that we need to point out that isn't obvious? You play aggressive creatures, you play myriad creatures. I'm going to just say Ragavan is my example of an aggressive creature, just a good 1-drop. You play an aggressive creature on 1. Potentially you find the time to play Popular Entertainer on 2, but most likely you are going to play more creatures on turn 2. Let's say, I don't know, this is really just a random assortment of cards, but like a Goblin Instigator. Wait, no, it's not an Instigator. It is an in... Oh my god, there's so many goblins. But why does Battle Scarred Goblin show up when I already had typed in? I'm thinking of the one goblin that creates more goblins. Mana value 2. Where are you, my friend? Goblin Engineer, blah 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 blah. Pile Driver, Rock Slide, Striker. Oops, I must have moved past it. I don't know. Just give me any good goblin, right? This is 2 goblin tribally, but Oh, it is the instigator. God damn it. I was right and then I doubted myself. Never doubt yourself, guys. Never. You play your Ragavan on 1, you play your Goblin Instigator on 2, you play, I don't know, maybe your Ironcrag Pyromancer on 3, although it is an 04, so maybe be careful. And then you play your Ember Gristle Maul on turn 4. You've already emptied your hand a bunch, and then turn 5 you play, let's say, a popular entertainer and something that makes it so your opponent's creatures can't block. You full swing, your hand is already empty. Could be a good combo. Are we missing something obvious? For a short moment, my brain wandered towards stuff like Ensnaring Bridge, because you will never have a lot of cards in your hand, like 3 at most. And maybe that is a way to build the deck. And Snaring Bridge. In case you don't know, Ensnaring Bridge is a pretty strong artifact. 3 mana. Creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand can't attack. Now the problem with this commander is you go super hyper aggressive. And then you kind of need to either close the lid, kill people off super quickly, especially the ones that are the biggest threat, of course. Or you take some precautions that buy you some time to maybe find your bedlams to get a final swing in. An issue here is Ember Gristle Maul needs to get in herself, so Ensnaring Bridge can never be lower than 3, which is a bit weird, but I'm pretty sure thinking about it, there is a deck out there that does something like this. But, you know. Crashing Drawbridge, for example, is a good card. Whenever you read something that says like your commander needs to attack, you should probably also be playing cards that give your commander haste. It could be a Crashing Drawbridge. It could also be like the 1/1 Goblin that gives haste. There's a couple of these. I would say the 1/1 Goblin is probably the best. It sits in a slot in your curve that is probably mostly uncontested, and it does have an attack. Or sorry, it can attack. So, right, the wall could never be one of the creatures attacking a player. So, yeah, it is what it is. This is the mono red take on this card, I think. By the way, technically, I think I would have had, yeah. But from here on out, because it's just the nature of how partner commanders work, I think. I didn't prepare images for everything. It just wasn't possible. But let me fix that real quick. Flaming Inspiring Veteran Soldier. Give me a second. So, oh, actually, I don't even have the images for them because I didn't download them previously. Let's talk about a white, red, amber, crystal, Maul. I guess I'm gonna leave up the red one, although it's not that good. Okay. Amber Gristle Maul and Flaming Fist giving your creature double strike. That's pretty mediocre. I think you want to go white, so maybe let's get Flaming Fist out of here. Inspiring Leader. Commander, creatures you own have creature tokens you control get +2/+2. I think the synergy is very obvious. Tokens make it easy for you to attack a lot of players at the same time, and commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. The basic idea is you play Veteran Soldier on turn 2, you play an Amber Gristle Maul on turn 3 or 4, or whenever you manage to get it down in your red deck. And then you attack the player with the highest life total, and you trigger this ability first. Whenever Amber attacks a player, you create a 1/1 that's tapped and attacking that player. Oh, actually, like, there's not much synergy here. It creates a bunch of tokens, but the synergy is not perfect. So probably I would go for Inspiring Leader. how do we want to... First of all, let's look at some Boros cards that are just aggressive payoffs. Because, again, the idea here, in my opinion, is that you choose a background on what the color offers you. I'm actually going to look for cards that have Boros in the name because those should be pretty aggressively slanted. Yeah, you play the color for what the background for what the color has to offer, not for what the background has to offer. Is there something that creates tokens here? No, but let's kick the Boros out of the name. It was worth a try, and let's look for cards that create token. Because let's say we choose the background that gives all of our tokens +2/+2. If UB. We want to be creating as many tokens as we humanly possibly can. Well, Adeline Resplendent Cathar is a 3-mana star 4. It has vigilance. Power is equal to the number of creatures you control, and whenever you attack for each opponent, create a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that creature. Here we have the desired effect that I talked about when we first started talking about Amber, where you create tokens for each other guy you aren't attacking. And this is, of course, very nice because you can trigger Adeline first before you trigger Amber, and then draw 3 cards. In a similar fashion, no, this guy just doubles down. Inox Strike Leader, still a good card, 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you attack with this or your commander, for each opponent, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. Sacrifice this creature, aka the Inox Strike Leader. Creature tokens you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Both of these guys work super duper well with your commander, just making sure that you always have at least 3 cards in your post-combat main phase. And then, like, the payoff for having a bunch of tokens also sits in your command zone because you can give your tokens +2/+2. Then... a card that I want to talk about, but I did talk about it in the Boros stream, and consequently I will talk about it again in the Boros video. Alliance of Arms is interesting. It creates X/1/1 white soldiers. The whole table gets to pay into this effect, and everybody gets to create those tokens. But I assume in a deck like this, no one's ever gonna help you with an effect like this. Let's see, is there one more good card we can showcase? I mean, I personally think Anim Pakal is a good one, but it should be your commander. She goes wide and tall at the same time. We can talk about the new Elspeth, but that's also a card that everybody knows. Also, a payoff for drawing cards could be interesting here. I'm not sure if white has a lot of payoffs for drawing cards. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier. It's not guaranteed we do that either. I'm just now realizing how difficult partner commanders are to figure out. It's fun, but it's also a bit stressful. This guy, by the way, super good. Benny Brax, Zoologist, 4-mana 3/2. Convoke, so your creatures can help cast a spell. And at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. So that, and of course the Eidolon of Oblivion. Is that not how you type it? Idol of Oblivion. 2 mana, draw a card, activate only if you created a token this turn. Those are cards that will fuel your turns quite a bit. Quite a bit. If I had to make a quick call based on just glancing at these cards, I would say a white, red, amber, Gristle, Omal deck with Inspiring Leader as your background probably seems like it works the best. You'll still goad a bunch of guys because, like, yeah, you're playing all of these tokens and your opponents can't possibly block all tokens. And of course, you can still play cards like Bedlam. Yeah, I think this seems the most coherent. I think most people would agree. Next, I want to talk about Baloth. By the way, I don't have that much time today, so might have to call it after Baloth. For now, my maxim is to go online more regularly, even though I can't stream for all that long. Baloth. It is, I believe, the priciest by a long shot, and similarly to the last commander, he cares about goading. Creatures your opponents control with power less than Baloth are goaded. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token, and you get to choose a background. Now, thankfully, goading is already a red mechanic first. It is a secondary black mechanic. So if I were to choose a background for Baloth, I would either go for a really good red background or a black background just to get some extra juice. He's in my Fumiko deck. You have a Fumiko deck. You, sir, have good taste. Fumiko, I think, if I were to build a mono red deck, it would either be Zozu the Punisher, probably, or potentially a Fumiko deck. I love Fumiko. She's so cool. So if we take a look at the backgrounds that I picked, we have the Popular Entertainer. Again, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, goad target creature that player controls. A bit unnecessary in my opinion because your commander already goads. Whenever an artifact or a creature you control is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. That's okay, but not necessarily good. I really like the Cultist of the Absolute. Because for 1 mana, commander creatures you own get +3/+3, flying, death touch, and ward pay 3 life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Now, this is gonna demand a toll from you, of course, but what it does is it immediately, from your command zone, bumps this guy up to 5 power, meaning 4 or lower powered creatures your opponents control are all goaded. And then the Haunted one I don't think fits all that well. And what do we have here? Commander creatures you control have. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It gains death touch and indestructible. That's okay. I am brewing a Vile Smasher the Fierce, Amrix, Filigree Thrasher, and Obush the Prey Piercer as in companion deck, calling it Smasher, Thrasher, and Piercer. If that doesn't sound like an awesome metal band, then I don't know. The Smasher, Thrasher, Piercer. Good on you. The next one I really like though. It is Criminal Past. Commander creatures you own have Menace, and this creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. This one, it opens up a second color, and it also buffs the power. It's quite obvious why I think this one fits nicely. Guild Artisan. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life, you create treasures. That's okay, but not that... Oh, you have it because of my video? That's so awesome to hear. Nice. BA. Let's add 1 and move 1 to the main deck. Is the other one already in here? No, I wanted the +X/+0. Where did it disappear to? Here. Oh, I put it in AB instead of BA. Okay. Move on to the main. Ah, I do it wrong every single time. Add 1. Move 1 to... by the way, can you tell me a bit about your Fumiko deck, like the card choices and how it works? I know YouTube chat is like not the best place to do it, but we have a chill stream today. Not many, like I don't have a super focused timeline today. Move one to the sideboard. Okay, so we have Baloth, Veritable Entertainer, and he cares about goading. So, of course, what we're gonna do is your commander cares about goading. We are going to look at color identity black, red, and the card needs to say goad. Not Geode, but goad. And because it's me, but you don't have to do that, of course, I'm going to say minus is universes beyond. The beginning of your end step, each player may put 2+1/+1 counters on creatures they control. Goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. I don't like this one as much because it makes your creatures more powerful. Remember that all creatures are goaded. Best case scenario. But what I also always say is if your commander does something very specific that is a threat to the entire table, they automatically also become the #1 removal target. So if you have effects that do something similar and maybe don't even cost all that much, you should probably be playing them in your deck. For example, a card like Bloodthirsty Blade, which is an equipment that you can attach to target creature an opponent controls, and that creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded. That means, yeah, you have these innocuous cards that goad, and worst case, right, this guy, because you have the background that gives it +3/+3, every creature for power 4 or lower is goaded, but your opponents will have bigger creatures. Well, those bigger creatures you attach your Bloodthirsty Blade to. Lots of token makers so I can get the plus for attacking creatures. I also try and add some goads. I'm not targeted because everyone must attack each other if able. And I have a couple of cards and artifacts to keep her vigilant. Yeah, vigilance is a pretty big part of that. I'm setting up a Discord right now, by the way, and I will launch it with the next video, which I hope will come out sometime soon, definitely during this week. And then we can finally, like, you could be sharing the deck list because I think YouTube chat automatically deletes them. But that will be a good place to, like, because I'm so curious about your Fumiko list. And I love deck building. Right now, I am in a huge deck building phase in my life. So yeah, the Discord will be a good spot to share stuff like this. For now, we are also looking at some payoffs for having goaded creatures on your opponent's side. Bothersome Quasit, 3 mana. Goaded creatures your opponents control can't block. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, goad target creature an opponent controls. Now, the secondary effect is just okay because hopefully most creatures your opponents control will be goaded, but this allows you to get in freely because your goaded opponent's creatures can't block. There's more stuff like this. Let's see. I'm thinking of a very specific 4-drop that is black and red. Here we can give the goaded creatures menace, so everybody else just dies a lot. I'm slowly making one deck of every color variety following your recommendations usually. That is, by the way, right now one of my dreams and goals is out of every video I make, I want to have and own a deck for every for every video, every color combination. But I mean, also I don't have the money right now. Rentmaw is finished after your Golgari video this week. Nice. Yeah, you told me that you were building a Rentmaw deck. When this guy enters gold creatures, and you put counters on it, I'm thinking, of course, of... Wait, isn't there a 4-drop? That goads every opponent creature? All creatures your opponents control? I'm a bit surprised that I don't find it here. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature and goad it. Whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player draw a card and lose 1 life. And I think that is that's what I would do with a commander like Baloth. He has an immensely powerful effect. So you want some doublers. So, right, all of these guys goad themselves, which you could say is useless because your commander goads, but your commander is going to die a lot, in my opinion. So you still want some other effects that goad. And then you also want to have these payoffs. Whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponents, those creatures gain menace, and you draw a card, and they draw a card. So that is a way that I would take Baloth. Frontier Warmonger. Frontier Warmonger. The card rings a bell. Whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponents, they gain menace. Oh yeah, so it's the same effect than the 5-drop, but on a 4-drop, which of course is very nice. Especially since, and I've talked about this a bunch, in Commander, I try not to clog up the mana value spot of my commander too much. Because turn 5, or whenever you have 5 mana available, you're most likely gonna cast Baloth and not Frenzied Core Spawn. And then next turn, if you have your 6 mana available, then this is already off curve. Frenzied Saddle Brute sounds like he does exactly the same, except that he's saddled. I remember the card though. I think he doesn't saddle, right? Even though it says saddle. Yeah. All creatures. Yeah. There's some good examples. I think you can probably, the Spy Master, you can probably pull from your deck quite a bit from your Fumiko deck. Spy Master is the one that creates the goblins that are, yeah, they are pseudo goaded. Do they add much to our commander though? So this, guys, it's obvious. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies. So these guys aren't actually goaded, right? So you won't get to create the treasure tokens. So Goblin Spy Master, even though he creates a bunch of creatures and he works nicely with some of the effects, I would say. I don't think he's like a perfect fit for Baloth. We could talk a bit more about the fine details in the fine deck building choices that you will have to adjust depending on if you play Criminal Past or Cultist of the Absolute. Because, of course, Cultist of the Absolute means you need to have a bunch of creatures lying around constantly that you can sacrifice. Something that I would potentially look for then is we have treasures as payoff, and there is some cards that care about being paid with treasure. If mana treasure spent, because there's cards that say whenever you spend mana on from a treasure on this, then do X. And maybe there's stuff that creates tokens. I'm not sure. First strike and haste. +2/+0. Doesn't seem to be the case. Whenever this guy attacks, exile up to one target card from a graveyard. If an artifact card was exiled this way, create a treasure. Whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. I think that card is pretty obviously quite good with your commander because you will have those treasure tokens lying around quite a bit. Here, whenever you cast a spell, if mana from treasures was spent to cast it, this class deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent. We're also going to add that. War Elemental. Comes into play, sacrifice it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn. Whenever damage is dealt to an opponent, put that many +1/+1 counters on War Elemental. It's a cool card, and I'm going to showcase it because it's a cool card. And I'm not even sure if I will make a video about partner commanders anytime soon. Because blue-green is definitely first. It's a cool card. Again, if your commander did something that enabled this card, Mm, I would be more confident if it gave like unblockable or at least menace to something. If it's just a big dumb beater, it might still be good enough, but the condition is also a bit awkward, right? Sacrifice it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn. That doesn't work nicely with the goaded creatures, although you could argue that if your opponent's creatures are goaded all the time, they might not have a blocker. So in that sense, it works quite nicely. But it goes so hard with Fling. Like, in your deck, this is probably insane because you can fling it for like 30 damage so quickly. Agitator Ant. Agitator Ant. I think I remember the artwork. Ah, yeah, we talked about this. The reason why I think this doesn't work all that well is at the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature they control, and then those creatures are goaded until your next turn. They need to attack, right? This effect is not permanent, just once. The issue that I foresee here is your commander cares about your opponent's creatures' power. If you make them too powerful, then they will have more power than Baloth Baratul, and there's some negative synergy or tension with your commander. It's a good card in a lot of other decks, but specifically with Baloth, I at least would be skeptical if there isn't maybe a bit too much tension. So we talked about, but I guess like the treasure tokens, that was specifically Mastermind that we talked about. That is quite a nice fit and Alchemist's talent. I mean, Coldest of the Absolute, there's not much that you need to think of. You just need to think of like playing a bunch of cards. The curse cards help in Go 2, Curse of Hospitality and Opulence. Yeah, it's a big maybe. I agreed. Criminal Past. Commander creatures you own have menace, and this creature gets +X+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. This one is more interesting to me because then you open up the whole self-mill package. By the way, let me know if you think that is a good idea because, I mean, I work in marketing and I know that the best information you can get is always from your target audience, and in some way, shape, or form, you're my target audience. I was thinking of breaking up deck building into all of these different things because deck building really, a lot of things in deck building repeat themselves. For example, here we are looking at self-mill. Self-mill comes in a lot of different forms like dredge or mill or potentially you can't discard. And you're always looking at the same profile of cards. And I was thinking of building up the deck building process and making videos on like, these are the best cards you should be looking out for when you are looking for self-mill. Or something that comes up every single video is these cards are broken because they have high mana value, but you pay not that much mana. Room cards, split cards, delve cards, evoke cards. All of these, like, they fit similar functions and they often go into the same deck, but it's quite tedious to always remember all of them. And during deck building, yeah, just remember that all of these exist. Because Warp, for example, is a new mechanic. We've never seen it before. It's easy to forget that Warp exists. Whereas, of course, everybody knows Delve. So I was thinking of, yeah, making like video series on like these specific deck building techniques, I would almost call them, or like profiles of cards. Let me know if that's something that sounds interesting. Also, like that's what I want to use the Discord for at some point. It's like ask these questions to the people that are most likely to watch my videos. Sorry, yeah, but this was a big tangent on Criminal Pest. This this is the deck where you play like Stitchers. Oh my god. Stitchers Supplier. This is the deck where you play oh god. Not something orb. M orb. Mesmeric orb, right? Mesmeric orb. And you can start to see the differences, right? In a criminal past deck, you are playing Stitcher Supplier and of course the Orbe Hypnotica, which are cards that you're definitely not playing in your Cultist of the Absolute deck. Although the core will stay the same. All right. I think, unfortunately, I have to keep it really short for today. And this was more of an experiment of how it is to talk about partners. It is super stressful and a bit difficult for me to visualize for you guys. For the Commander series, like I go through the stream, I tick up and down the commanders. And there's always just one card on display. Here on the left side, I need to have the background and the commander, but then I realize, oh, this is good with a white commander, and then everything is not in order anymore. So yeah. I don't have much more time. Tomorrow, I will stream. I will use the extra time today to edit the Boros video. Tomorrow, I'll stream again. We might do, I think we'll do partners again. Or sorry, like backgrounds technically again. I'll try to be a bit better prepared and find a solution in the meantime to always have like the right thing on display. And we might follow it up with some Slay the Spire because I'm addicted to that game right now. Anyways, thank you as always for your participation. Every stream is, and I genuinely mean that, like, streaming on my own is perfectly fine, even if no one comments. It's pretty much how I go through games and deck building, anyways. I just, yeah, think out loud. But if you have interaction with just one person, it enhances the product, the process, and I've also said this repeatedly, the product as well. Like the videos get better because of people who recommend stuff. Anyways, that's enough glazing. Always remember, be kind to yourself and others. Goodbye and see you tomorrow.